As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble.
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Son of a bitch. He stole my life.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Welcome back to the Shot by Shot podcast, where today we're finally talking the last entry in the Mission Impossible franchise, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, which this is such a franchise that I've loved so much, from Brian De Palma's original to pretty much every entry apart from one that we'll speak on later in our full franchise rankings. But I'm sorry to report that I think this is a really disappointing Mission Impossible film, a poor conclusion to a 30-year-old franchise. Just really, really disappointing stuff in general. What did you think about Oscar?
Yeah, I'm kind of roughly in the same boat as you. I saw this last Thursday in early screening at IMAX. Did you see it in IMAX as well?
I did, yeah.
Yes. One of the worst IMAXs I've been in, actually. The screen was like big and stuff. Like, if like at the first hour or so, there was like sound glitches occasionally, and the seats were like so stiff they weren't recliner.
Mine's glitched out as well. Now that you mention it, because mine's
The
just closed
sound.
captions. There was a intro video before it, and I think it wasn't in the IMAX ratio, so it started glitching out.
Oh, yeah. For me, there was just like a couple of sound glitches, and then, but yeah, the seats are like they're so stiff, and they weren't recliner, and the leg room was awful, and having
You have
really long
recliner
legs.
IMAX?
What do you mean? Do you not have recliner seats?
Mine's might just be the staff seats that you were in this time. That's what mine's is always like.
What? Do you not have recliners in your IMAXs?
No, I didn't think that was a thing.
Yeah. Well, not in all of them, but in the ones kind of close to me, the one back home has nice seats, but it's not recliner. But yeah, you get like a button on the side to press, and like the front comes up, like the front thing, and you can push back. Is very nice.
I need that.
Yeah, they're really good, and loads of leg space anyway. But yeah, IMAX with no leg space is awful, but I'll stop ranting about that. Yeah, this film, a really big disappointment. I think, in my view, I said that like Dead Reckoning is a good film, but there's something about that film that it has small problems scattered everywhere, and I think this film kind of takes those problems and just amplifies it and just completely caves in to the franchise's worst tendencies, which for the first hour is just continual repeated exposition and needless callbacks and links to the franchise. You know, we're flashbacking at literally every bit of exposition said, which it makes it worse because I don't like a ton of exposition. Mainly, well, it can work, but for this, it's just not necessary. And on top of that, we're just having flashbacks of everything, and it makes this first hour just so slow, and it just lacks rhythm completely. I think there's the great MO films has such a rhythm to them, even when we're moving from action sequences to kind of talking head sequences, and these last two, and particularly that one, just are so dysfunctional and really do not have that sense of rhythm that you'd expect. And if it weren't for the middle part of this film, we'd be talking about this film a lot worse, because I think the middle part is really great and one of the best set pieces in the franchise. But yeah, this does not need to be 2 hours and 50 minutes long. Nowhere near.
It is a bit long, yeah. I agree. I totally agree with everything you said. I actually love Dead Reckoning. I kind of think Dead Reckoning fits into that kind of like Mission Impossible, where it's really well structured and around those set pieces. Because I think that's what Brian De Palma done brilliantly at that point in the '90s, where he like really structured his film fully around all those set pieces, and they kind of copied that. At least the ones that done it best kind of copied that structure. And I think Dead Reckoning is kind of well structured in the way it lays out. This one's kind of just a mess, directionless. It's at times it's just frustratingly messy right from the go, and it kind of just puts a bad taste in your mouth throughout the whole thing. There's some big emotional moments in here that I was kind of just I was kind of zoned out to it at the point that they come, because I was just like they're really just messing it up, and I was just so sad with it, and it just didn't really hit me. Macquarie kind of his tenor's weird at the helm of this franchise that he came in after the fourth one because I guess it wasn't his like main idea, but he was kind of trying to streamline the Ethan Hunt like narrative into a more serialized version because up to that it's just different standalone director movies at that point, where they didn't really connect or like carry on a story. But yet it feels like every entry that he's done it feels like a completely different director. And I know he's been doing this for like 14 years, but it's just there's no consistency to the almost kind of quality that he delivers in his direction. Rogue Nation, weirdly, his first attempt is, I think, probably by far his strongest for me. Undoubtedly helped by the fact that it's shot by Robert Elswit, and PTA's cinematographer before he started shooting his own films. His style has varied from then. That one was completely shot on film. It's kind of followed kind of blockbuster like franchises in that or blockbuster filmmaking in that sense that it's went fully digital now, and that obviously has a big impact on his style, just kind of from movie to movie. I think Dead Reckoning was actually a really good example of digital filmmaking, but again, just it completely changes every film. Some ways weakening, some ways improving. His partnership with Cruise, I think, is developed as well over that like decade, with like them both kind of putting their careers into the movie. I mean, this one is literally like Cruise just saying like AI cannot replicate what I'm doing. I'm gonna hang off the side of a plane, and AI can't do that. Very
Mm.
much influencing the narrative in these films. Yeah, just so disappointing, man. It's so messy. The stunts are still there. I think if you just want the stunts, you're not going to be satisfied. But that's kind of the minimum at this point of what I'm expecting from these, at least Macquarie films, so the second half of the franchise. Weirdly, a direct sequel to Brian De Palma's original film, which I did not expect. Kind of a legacy
Mm.
sequel, in the way that it constantly mentions the original film, elements from it. There's some returning stuff from that film that we'll get into. Just a very weird sequel and a weird way to end one of the biggest franchises.
Yeah, that it did initially put me in that weird feeling, and you're right. I think by the time we get into that kind of second act and move into the last act, the damage has already been done, and I think it has that first hour has such an impact on the rest of the film, that it's never able to spread its wings fully, and I think we're as much as I love the second act and the last act, we kind of get there, and it just feels all too familiar. The last act for me, I'm like, yeah, this plane stunt is really cool. I don't know, I didn't feel as hooked into that plane stunt pieces maybe as much as I was hoping actually. I think a lot of the stakes they're just trying to pin this kind of emotional standpoint on just so many different characters at once, and it can never find the right moment. You know, you got like um, actually I'll say that, but LA wants to go to spoilers. But yeah, uh, is it Macquarie or is it Macquarie? I can is it I can never I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I thought
McHugh
it was
is what
Macquarie.
is a load of people call him. Anyway,
Macquarie.
yeah,
Okay. That was maybe me then.
Macquarie McQuarrie, it doesn't matter. Really, really sourceless to be honest. He, I have this problem with Dead Reckoning. I think the editing and the way it's shot is kind of dizzying. Um, for me. And he tries to be De Palma so much. There's so many superfluous and unnecessary Dutch angles that is
He
just
does.
doing absolutely nothing. It's having no effect, and it's nothing like what De Palma was able to do in the first one. You know, you got that confrontation scene in the original between him and Kittredge. With that water tank where he first kind of tells them about, oh, this is like a mole hunt, and there's some incredible Dutch angles in that, and I think that, and De Palma has such depth to his shots as well. Like a lot of the McQuarrie close-ups and Dutch angles are so flat, and I'm not really feeling anything. And I just get annoyed because he's evolved across his films. I think, like you said, like there's something different about each of his each direction outing and not in a good way. Like Rogue Nation, the absolute peak of his directional efforts and one of the peaks of the franchise, comes in straight away with a bang, and then Fallout is good, and then but then Dead Reckoning comes in, and it's like there's something so starkly worse and annoying about this, and like I said, Final Reckoning just takes up on those and unfortunately takes them and completely caves in. And aside from that middle sequence, there's not really much directional standout, and even images in general. I don't think he really has that many standout images. Someone like John Woo or Brian De Palma had in the kind of originals. The doesn't really have any textures to them. This kind of digital style. I think the underwater sequences look great, like the interior lighting with the submarines and stuff. That looks really cool. But outside of that, his image making just isn't there, and nothing's sticking in my head afterwards. You know, there's the entirety of De Palma's films. Like, I'm like, yeah, that image sticks in my head so much, and his compositions are there. And McHugh he really just doesn't have it. Yeah, even in Rogue Nation, there's some fantastic shots in there, and the set pieces, the opera stuff,
Yeah.
and
The opera stuff
kind of
is incredible.
it is. And going from Brad Bird, who his direction is fine, but like going from that to Rogue Nation is really great watch, because instantly the compositions start to stick out to you, and it's so sad to see that that's just completely fallen away from him. Whether that was down to Ellsworth as well, because obviously Rogue Nation looks incredible, and I do, and yeah, it's so sad to see how
Rogue
far
Nation has such a distinct sense of place as well. Like,
it
that's
does.
set in London. I couldn't
Mm,
tell you where half this movie's set. It's set in
exactly.
London. It's set in South Africa, I think. At least that's where it's shot. I have no
Yeah,
idea where it was
yeah,
shot
it was.
in the movie.
It was
Um,
shot in South Africa.
there's some scenes in the US. Like, it's kind of all over the
Mhm.
place, and you never
It
really have a good
is.
sense of location or kind of sense of space, even in from scene to scene.
The stuff in London is so disorientating. Like you're underground most of the time, and the only thing you know is London is
Do we
there's like
want to go
opening
to
pan.
spoilers before we talk
Okay,
about this?
okay, yeah. We will go into spoilers now, so if you haven't seen it, go see it in IMAX. There's one thing I want to say. First thing is spoilers before we go into London. There's in the middle act of the film where he opens that submarine hatch, when he's turning the wheel, the IMAX aspect
Oh
ratio
yeah,
expands with
that was
each
nice.
turn of the wheel. That's
Mhm.
like a nice touch. I know that's like such a weird thing to get, but I don't know. I noticed that. I thought that was quite cool. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, London is really disorientating. We kind of begin the film with this awful, absolutely awful, like 5 minute tribute to the franchise and Tom Cruise. And I'm sitting there like Mission Impossible is so kind of known for their opening scenes, and this is what we're doing. And it's
It's a
just
fan
not
edit.
it's literally a fan edit of Tom Cruise and the Mission Impossible franchises. Angela Bassett's character, who's now the president, is speaking over to him, and eh, this first hour is so rushed, and it doesn't even need to be there, and it's so rushed, and there's so many things that's happened in between Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning. There's like, oh yeah, this is what happened, and here we are, and it expects you to get up to speed with so many things and so many emotional
Mm.
connections that never latch onto you really. And we're moving quickly from place to place. We're like I think we go to like an Austrian prison with Paris Pom's character, and then we're
Oh
in
yeah.
London very briefly at some random party.
Yeah,
Then
Luther is sick in a London bunker.
Luther's randomly complete Luther. They do Luther so dirty in this film.
Yeah.
They okay, major spoilers now. They shove Luther's death into a rushed uh, first act. That is, I cannot tell you how angry it made me. I felt absolutely
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah,
The
I
running
think I said to
scene.
you, I'll cry if Luther dies when we were like rewatching the franchise. I felt nothing, nothing at all
Mhm.
watching this man get blown up and die in London.
And then they try to like tie that kind of emotional bit to like a voice message at the end of the film that he left for Ethan. Doesn't land for me at all. And really wasn't feeling anything. And the action is directed is not really anything impressive. It wasn't really like, wow, this is really well directed action. It really just was fine. And then they're kind of chasing Gabriel. Gabriel is a really poorly written villain, as long as just as well as the entity is. We kind of spent a lot of this first act just is drink every time someone says the world's going to end. It's like the world, like the entity is going to bring about the end of the world. It's like, I feel like I really hope that they've done something more intriguing with this premise. And the entities really are nothing in this. And then they try to kind of shift it to Gabriel, but Gabriel's like, we hardly see him. He's like there briefly at the beginning of the film, nothing in the middle of the film, and then like we see him at the end.
Yeah.
And this kind of war on AI that they're going for is incredibly surface level. Trying to rely on the kind of cynical nature of humans, and which is like, I swear that is just brought up at every possible human encounter. Just like, oh my goodness, you can't trust this person. You have to do what the entity thinks. You have to do you have to do what the entity doesn't want. It's like that's literally every talking head scene. It's like, oh, Madam President, you have to do this. No, the entity wants us to do that. That's literally every scene with every human in this movie. And I said in my review that it feels like everyone's like some video game NPC quest giver, and everyone's line delivery is so awkward. And in Dead Reckoning, we see these kind of exposition deliveries that are so they're almost bordering on self-parody. That they're the way they're kind of directly delivered into the camera, and there's kind of that is just tenfold in this. And I think they were kind of funny in Dead Reckoning, but the way it's completely overloaded here. And we kind of end this kind of first act with a disorientating version of London, which we only notice London because we get a quick pan down of Big Ben. And it's like McCrew was like, oh yeah, we're in London, we have to we have to get the shot of Big Ben. And like that running scene's awful. It's like, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. We love the Tom Cruise running scene.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's whole sequence with Benji dying, not Benji dying, Luther dying. Sorry, is just
Really poor.
really poor.
We get some clips of protesters in London who are the pro entity.
Pro entity, yeah.
Yeah, which they look like AI generated people. That was
Yeah,
never
there's
really.
like that's another thing I've forgotten with like hot. They like there's now like random follow, like you said, random followers of the entity that's like all happened in between, like bridging the gap between these two films. And there's
Mhm.
so much that they just overload you with.
The middle act is like the submarine, which is probably the highlight of the film. I thought this movie was set up perfectly just to start on that.
I
Of
agree.
course they didn't know what it was, but that wasn't really a problem. That was kind of a problem they created for themselves.
Okay, one confusion I have quickly. They like spend the entirety of the film saying, "I have no idea what this key unlocks." And I swear it never changes that it opens the source code. Like that is said from like the beginning of Dead
Yeah.
Reckoning. And like they spend half of it saying, "No one has any idea what this key unlocks." But you know exactly what I swear they already know exactly. They like set up this mystery of like, "Oh, well, what's it gonna do?" And it never goes anywhere. And I don't know, it's so stupid. But yeah.
Yeah, so they set up this whole other like adventure where they have to try and find out the coordinates of where the submarine was like shot down. Which takes us to this really random cabin in Antarctica. I don't know. That's another example. I don't know
It's
where the hell we are.
it's the Arctic. It's north.
Yeah,
It's like some I've forgotten what it's called. Some small island near the North Pole.
turns out that William Donlow, the guy that gets sent to the toilet to shit himself during the Black Vault heist is returned.
Mm.
The
Mm.
most like globshitto random character to bring, which I love him in the first one. Well,
Yeah, I
not that I
do
love him as
too.
an actor. I have no idea who he is, but he's a big moment in that movie. It's the most iconic like, set piece in that movie. But he's such a
Mm.
random character to bring back, and I don't know who this was for because I mean I couldn't be a bigger fan of the first one, and I don't really care that
Mm.
they brought him back. It was just very weird and they make
Mm.
it very awkward the way they introduce him, where Benji is like fanboying over him and like
Oh
using it
no.
as exposition to explain to the audience who he is because
Yeah.
80% of people will have no idea. And even after they do that, they insert clips of the first film, even after they've already shown them, like at the start of like the very first intro.
Hmm.
Very awkward legacy stuff in this section of the film.
What they're like, oh look, here's the knife that um
Yeah.
Tom Cruise dropped, and like
That he's
here's a
kept.
shot of him. Here's a shot of him holding it as well.
Mhm.
Oh god. Yeah, that's really poor. I can't remember when it happens, but we get this probably the worst moment in the film. More Glupshito is Shea Wiggum's character from Dead Reckoning is the son of John Voight's character in the original, which is the most unnecessary thing to do in the world. And we're trying to tie so many emotional standpoints onto nothing, and you're trying to force so much emotion onto each of these characters that were left. And McCreary is obsessed with closure. Like Angela Bassett has like this son as well that we like briefly see in a photo, and it's like, oh, here's a ending bit with him as well. And he's obsessed with finding closure for like every single character in this film, and it is the doom of it. And we're just left with emotional arcs that just completely flatline by the second half of this film. Partially down to the fact that the first act just spends so much time dedicated to trying to put those together. And unfortunately, even in the peaks of this film, there's little bits just nestled in. Um, the second act, I
Mhm.
liked Ramel Tillman, uh, the guy from Severance, which I haven't seen, the leader of the submarine, and Katie
Yeah.
O'Brien as well. They're really great. I really like those two. Great actors.
Weirdly stacked
Um,
for just these random characters in a submarine.
it is, yeah, and we got like Holt McCanny, Nick Offerman as well, Hannah Waddingham, obviously Henry Shersney as
Churney.
well. Cherney, thank you. Um, and yeah, who just spent half the time in like this one boardroom the entire film,
Yep.
debating what to do. Um, um, yeah, this film's sense of politics is really vague as well. We kind of have this big board of like, oh, the entities taking over China's nukes and Russia's nukes and the UK's nukes, and I don't know, it doesn't really it's really vague with everything, and it doesn't really
Yeah.
move it anywhere forward.
And
Um,
the president wants to blow up the countries that have basically all the superpowers that have the big missiles so that the entity can't destroy the Earth. So she's going to
the
sacrifice
president,
millions to save the rest.
yeah, oh, that's so funny. It's yeah, I don't know. It's just um the talking heads just get to a point. I'm like,
It's
you're saying
crazy.
the same things over and over again, and it's just like you're just trying to fill the time. You're just trying to cut back to them, and that's what you're just trying to fill the time with, while everything else is happening in the film. Um, and the dialogue is so stale and flaccid. And yeah, the editor, the I hate the way this film is edited. There's quite a lot of frequent cutting um, and yeah, just inability to hold on to a shot. And there's only one shots in this. It's like there's just straight into faces, straight into another face, and straight into another face.
Hmm.
And is yeah, really not doing anything for me. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
And
back to
McQuarrie's never been someone to not shoot coverage in any of these movies and use that in his
mm,
edit. but it's criminal in here at times. There's really no spatial awareness in any of these like dialogue scenes when they're in rooms. There was one that I was generally just like so confused with, like Hannah Weddingham is like one of the admirals
Mm,
that Ethan Hunt. So Ethan's explaining the plan of him going down to the submarine, and then but they're also the rest of the crew is explaining the plan to someone else, and during that there's like like splicing in all the like coverage and like reaction shots, and one of them's
mm,
like I think it's Haley Atwell's talking, and you see a reaction shot from Hannah Waddingham, and she's like she's in a different room, and I was like, wait, is she in there with them? Like
mm,
I had no idea who was even in the room whilst they were like dropping this exposition.
mm.
It's really
It
bad.
is. Yeah, it's just so confusing how you can the same director can go from something like Rogue Nation to this, and it not even and it's like he's gone from one point to this, and it's not even he's like he started with this and gone to Rogue Nation. He's just fallen off, in a sense. Um, yeah, there's just no concept of a tight narrative in this. They're trying like, oh, here's how grand we can make this story, and you were talking about there really is a lack of sense of place. They talked in the kind of featurettes and stuff like that about Mission Impossible is about taking the audience on a journey, and I feel like you said, aside from some details that come up the screen about where we are, there is really no sense of identity or place throughout any of this. Um, and it is so muddled. All the backstories are contrived, so forced, just pulling strings from thin air. Everything is so one note, and um, it's just leaving you. It's just reminding you of how many better Mission Impossible films you could be watching, including the first. Um, and like I even predicted this before the film came out about the rabbits for being an earlier version of the entity. Um, like, why do I have to be reminded that Mission Impossible 3 exists? Like, for me, the two worst films
Mission
are back to
Impossible
back.
3 didn't understand what it was for, and they're trying to like retcon it to
Exactly.
make sense, and it still doesn't.
I know.
No, nobody knew what that
It,
was for. It was just a nothing
mm,
MacGuffin.
yeah, exactly. I almost liked the slight ambiguity on that, even though that film does kind of suck, and this one is maybe equally as poor. Um, yeah, I feel so sorry for this set of characters that this film has raised for so long. Just be shunned out by McCreary's obsession with new characters and how many he introduces, and how he seems to have more time for them than he does for the our characters that we have. Even Ilsa's death in Dead Reckoning, I really wasn't feeling a lot for that as well. And honestly, looking back the way they handled it, I really didn't like it. And Haley Atwell's does the best, but her character is just kind of a load of nothing on Ilsa or Michelle
Yeah,
Monaghan.
yeah. There's so many characters here that I mean, I like them in Dead Reckoning. I think Kaylee Atwell's really good in that. Kira's kind of at the forefront. I think Pom Clemente is amazing in Dead
Mm,
Reckoning. Again, not really giving much to do here. We already talked about Luthor's kind of pushed aside for kind of cheap emotional payoffs. Benji in here is really just exposition rather than he's not even. I can't even really think of many moments where you got to like have fun moments with the rest of the crew. I didn't like that do you even get like an emotional payoff with Benji really realizing or talking about Luthor dying? I
no.
feel like they were the closest across the movies, and they never. I feel like they should have been together when Luthor died. The submarine is amazing though. I feel like
Mm,
I I don't know if it might be an homage to there's some Bond movies where you get like the missiles and stuff. I think one of the Pierce Brosnan ones is like really um I re- reminded me of one of the scenes from one of those where he's like crawling over the missiles and stuff in the water. I think those scenes were really
mm,
great. There was a lot of like preparation when he's going down there. I think from Katie O'Brien's character, where she's like, "If you don't
Mm.
do this exact thing, you're gonna die, and it's gonna be
Oh
so hard to get
yeah,
up."
they were
And then he
so
just
over explaining that.
he takes his suit off and he just it like swims up to the top.
I know.
Shouldn't he have died? Like she said, if you hold your breath, your lungs will explode.
I know.
And he
Yeah.
just swims up.
Like, they like try to force this sense of fear into that scene with like, oh, you're gonna die if this happens and this happens and this happens. Like, and then thankfully it takes the good route of having literally no dialogue throughout that entire submarine
Yeah,
sequence. Really great. I don't have to
that's
hear
what's great.
annoying expositionary talking head for 20 minutes. I can just let the images do their thing. Um,
And has
and
the
not
best
having to
image
listen.
in the whole movie when he is
It does,
floating up to
yes.
the ice.
Yes, and there is a nice dissolve. There's like a brief dissolve with like him and Haley Atwell, just after that scene when he's like in the
Mhm.
whatever that pod is called, like de
Decompression.
decompression chamber. Thank you. Yeah, and then there's that the Black Vault guy's like wife is they try to hook some like emotional things onto her as well. I'm like, what are we doing, man? What are we doing? And they like try to give him like a hero's ending when he's like in that building and is burning. He's like hid behind that thing. It's like you're trying to pin so much emotion onto a guy that we like barely even know. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, there's just way too much happening for any one idea to surface properly, and we just are left with a lot of artificially generated character motivations.
Shea Wiggum as well. I think he was really underutilized in this. His character's so funny in Dead Reckoning. It's like I seen someone describe it as it's like Wallace and Gromit.
Feathers McGraw.
Feathers, yeah, they described it as like the relationship between them, where they just keep popping up and like escaping in really crazy
Mhm.
ways. Which also replicated that train sequence in the end of Dead Reckoning, which is funny as well with that relationship. Um, yeah, I don't know. Where does the submarine rank in terms of like the set pieces for the franchise for you?
Oh, I'm trying to think what else. So we've got opera sequence, the obviously the Black Vault sequence in the original. Um, I'm trying to think what else.
Those are the
I
helicopters
know,
fall at it.
yeah, I prefer all of the Paris sequence in Fallout for me. I think all the Paris stuff
I
is the
don't like
highlight of
that.
that film. Really?
Yeah, I don't like the middle of that film.
Really? I think
Doesn't really.
no, I think the ending is more kind of nah. I think for me the Paris sequences, all the chases there are the highlight of that film for me. And then I think after that it kind of slowly trickles to a fairly predictable ending. Um
Yeah,
but yeah, I think the opera sequence is definitely the one in Rogue Nation with the water's really good. Yeah, Rogue Nation just nails all this kind of tension. I think
mhm,
some of the films just have a tendency to kind of have these big set pieces and then just kind of slowly walk their way to an ending that doesn't really match aspects of the film. Ghost Protocol, I think, is the same. Some films just peak too early, but no, Rogue Nation kind of hits the nail on the head every
yeah.
moment. Same with the original. Same with two, as most people don't want to admit, but the last act of two is probably the best last act of the franchise, and people don't want to
Incredible.
admit that.
Yeah,
It's so good.
I'd agree. I feel like with the later half of the franchise, often I don't know if that's the case, but it feels like they write the stunts outside of writing the movie, and they kind of just force
I
it into the
agree.
narrative.
I agree.
Um, that's what made this. I feel like people were saying if you love Dead Reckoning, you're gonna love Final Reckoning, and I don't really
Mm,
agree because I feel like you can split that movie up to structure. So it's got like the airport set piece, the middle in Venice, and then the
mm,
train is like the last hour of the movie. This one is
mhm,
kind of more just very messy and structureless. Kind of, I think
mm.
more like Fallout. I don't think that's structured perfectly like the other ones. And the final act of this kind of lines up exactly like how Fallout is, where
Yeah,
Ethan
it
Hunt's
does.
out chasing the bad guy to do this
Mm,
thing that he's going to grab at the last second, and then the crew's back at another bomb that they have to cut. It's pretty much the exact same
it
scenario
is.
as the end of Fallout.
Mm.
Um, going on to the end, we can talk about the big plane sequence that they set up, which they showed quite a bit in the trailers. The fact that Gabriel is not an interesting villain sort of holds us back compared to other set pieces in the movie because you just don't really care about him as a villain. I liked him in Dead Reckoning when he was kind of just the physical like form of the entity,
I
but in this
agree.
movie he is completely separate and just kind of becomes the dead or the boring character that everybody thought he was in the first one. Um,
Mm.
horrible death. I, was that supposed to be funny?
Oh no, that was so
I'm not really sure
stupid.
what they
They
were
tried
going
to make
for with
that
that.
comedic.
Yeah.
That was is he like he's like only one of us has a parachute. Jumps out the parachute and like smacks his head on the rudder of the plane as as he's going out. And oh dear, it's just yeah. I don't know.
um,
There's like at times I love Mission Impossible, but at times it's like they're hyping up like you have to do this thing in like point one of a second, and no matter what,
mm,
you just it's always going to happen.
yeah.
And it's kind of hilarious to a point, but even with this final film of the franchise, who knows if it might continue on. But I'm still just like try something different. I'm really not feeling anything. We're in too familiar with a place. I'm like, I've seen this before, and yeah, it's just really annoying. There's
Yeah.
a coalition of characters at the end, like there's faces happening and there's chases and there's people are firing guns and people don't know who's doing what, and it's not and it's up in the air in a bad sense and not in a sense that is creating unpredictable tension and that has any form of atmosphere to it because this film really doesn't have any atmosphere to it like the other entries do, most of the other entries anyway.
Yeah, the stakes are not very good. I think in general, we're gonna blow up the world if you don't complete this. Isn't very good stakes in any movie. There is a cool sequence where they basically do Terminator 2 and they show like London getting blown up
Oh
when he's
yeah,
in the entity like chamber,
yeah.
but
Mm,
it's not very good as leaning on stakes as for the whole movie because you know they're not gonna blow up the planet. Uh,
mm,
it's just not gonna happen. But yeah, that doesn't help, and the villain isn't very good either.
mm.
Um, kind of breaks my theory that any Mission Impossible with a Hitchcock homage is like the kind of better films as well.
Mm.
With this, obviously, just taking the plane from
North
North
by
by
Northwest.
Northwest.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I don't want them to make any more. I just the queue I don't think has got it. And yeah, I kind of wish Tom would work with some other directors.
I
Like
agree. Yeah,
he is in love with McHugh so much. Um and that's cool and all. But yeah, last this last one was just
it's,
not it.
it's him, Doug Lyman, and Kosinski, who are the only filmmakers he's worked with in the
Mm.
last 15 years. Um,
Ooh. Wait, that thank goodness that's changing. Alejandro
Inarritu.
Gonzalez Inarritu, um, which could be either the greatest film I've made or the worst film I've ever made. A because of the plot and B because of his reputation, and knowing how self-indulgent he tends to be. So I'm glad that he is doing that. And yeah, that sounds like it could be something interesting. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he kind of missed for me with his last film, which was kind of the definition of self-indulgent. Like, it was a very
what
personal
was it? Was it
Bardo.
Bardo? Bardo, yeah,
Yeah,
Bardo.
yeah.
I've not seen that.
Beautiful
That
looking
is one.
movie, but I did not vibe with it. But I've loved the
Mm.
rest of his films, including Birdman, which I think is his best film. So I'm very hopeful for what he can do with Tom Cruise.
I do like Birdman. I think it's a good film.
I like Tom Cruise doing action stuff, but I would like to see him just go back to his more interesting
Mm,
90s stuff. That was a really interesting run. Um, where you just worked with the best directors working at the time. I don't know
yeah,
who does he even have to work with to match Kubrick and PTA and
PTA in the
Spielberg.
same year is crazy.
Yeah,
It is
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah. Do you want to go into a ranking of the franchise? I think we
Yep.
pretty much
So
did.
we do have Mission Impossible 3. J.J. Abrams is a hack,
JJ.
and he does his a really shoddy Tony Scott impersonation. It is horribly edited and horribly directed. Um, and I will not stand for the revisionism and praise that this film gets, and people who say two is worse. This film is he
Crazy.
can't keep the camera still. The action is you cannot make out what's happening, and I hate the way he handheld like recomposes his sequences. You're like he'll be holding on a talking head, and then like does a little shuffle, and it repositions, and it is so
Yeah.
infuriating. It is so
It's
horribly
a TV
directed.
movie.
It is, and um, the yeah, it's just not a good movie anyway. Philip Seymour Hoffman does do great, but yeah, the way he just composes close-ups and are so flat and so meaningless, and you got Tom Cruise and Philip Seymour Hoffman kind of riffing, and they're doing the best, but the editing and directing is so bad that I shouldn't be feeling
It,
um, that I should be feeling something. I'm just not. So that's a number 8 for me. I give it a 2.5, but yeah, this film is not good. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's between yeah, it's woefully. And then I've seen some people have this as the top of the. I've seen some people have this
I've
at the
seen
top of
number
the
ones for it.
franchise.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Some people were like 4.5s. I see people. Anytime I see someone have 1 and 2 at the bottom, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Mission Impossible
And
3
so
is worse
I give this a
edited and
2
shot
stars.
than anything in Final Reckoning, man. It annoys me. That movie annoys me so much the way
Yes,
it's shot. It's like
it
the way
does.
we see it is like a B-Tech Tony Scott is the fact that his shots for like 2 seconds and he doesn't hold on to
Mm,
anything and it's just constant editing. And that's why
mm,
he's shot like TV. It's just there's an edit every 2 seconds. It's
mm.
awful stuff. Yeah, I've got
So
that two
I have
stars.
Mission. I have 2 stars, and then number 7. What we just talked about, Final Reckoning. I've put it at 2.5.
I'm the same. I've got a 2.5. I thought I wanted to give it a 3 just because of the set pieces, but then I think about the character
The more I think
assassination stuff
about,
that they've done in here, and it just annoys me.
mm,
And
mm.
it's so
um,
awkward because like there's stuff in here that's better than like there's scenes in here that are better than mostly everything that's came out this year, like the set pieces.
mm,
But there's just it's so mixed. It's hard to rank
mm.
it.
Then for me at number 6, we're like Final Reckoning and 3 are the only misses in the franchise. So we have a
Yeah,
solid leap up to Ghost Protocol at number 6, which I have a 3.5. Obviously, we've all rewatched all these films recently in the past couple of months, so all refreshed. The first kind of half of the film, everything up to and including the Burj Khalifa sequence, is really, really great. Kind of a good refresher from having Abrams directing to Brad Bird.
yeah.
But yeah, it kind of the second half for me just doesn't really stick the landing, and we kind of end up in this familiar ending territory again. But yeah, opening kind of sequences, the
The
Kremlin
prison.
sequence is really good. The prison, the scene with that kind of invisibility thingy. I don't even know what to call it, but they're slowly moving forward in the Kremlin. That's really good. But yeah, Ghost Protocol with 3.5. Again, I see
Yeah,
this film with people like having it at the top is
yeah. I don't
not
understand that either.
strange.
It's very competently directed. I think this is Brad Bird's
Mm,
first non-animated film, so yeah, I'm not really
yeah,
going to judge him too hard for
mm,
not having outstanding direction. I think that
mm,
this movie really is the Khalifa set piece, and it peaks
mm,
in that moment. it is really it does feel a bit like the what I was talking about, where it is just the set pieces rather than it actually being part of the narrative. Um, and it is really evident by the second half. I know this film had a lot of problems. This is when McQuarrie came in to really sort out the writing because he's like that guy for Cruz. Like if Cruz is on a movie that he can see collapsing, he just brings him in to try and sort it out. I think
Mm,
this was maybe the first film he'd done that on. But
mm.
then obviously he took over from there. But this, yeah, this was really the beginnings of those relationships. Start of the beginning of the narratives actually continuing, carrying over stuff from Free in this. Is it? Does carry over his wife? Or am I getting mixed up with Fallout or Rogue Nation?
You, hmm.
I can't even
Does this
remember
have
now.
his wife in it? I feel like there
Maybe
might
it's Rogue
be.
Nation.
No, the ending of Ghost Protocol, we see his wife.
Yeah.
They're like they go and she's like in the shop and like he's on that
Hmm.
this riverside restaurant or whatever. Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah. The villain in this is awful. I think his
It
plan is just to
is.
blow up the world as well. It's
This is the definition of competently directed, but next to a J.J. Abrams film, it looks like a masterpiece.
yeah. I feel like this is what I've been thinking about like Final Destination. I think when you come off of 4, everybody loves 5 more because of how good it is in comparison. This is that for the Mission Impossible franchise.
Um, at number 5 for me, I have Dead Reckoning, also at a 3.5 out of 5. The film went down for me on rewatch. I think it's good. The second half, especially, I think the first half just lacks that MI rhythm and a lot of weird editing and directing choices I really don't like. It's really nauseating to watch, and yeah, it just I don't know these kind of the yeah it just doesn't have that feel, that MI feel that I would. It's still a good film, but yeah, just gone down over time for me. I think it's solid. It's good. It's good. But yeah, number 5 for me, Dead Reckoning.
Yeah, this is where we differ because I have Fallout in 5, but I'll talk about Dead Reckoning, which I still love. I do agree that it has those like things that are amplified in Final Reckoning, but I kind of like them actually when they do it in this movie. Good balance of all the
Mm,
characters still. I think that train set piece is amazing. I love trains in movies. I think that's just it's almost a staple of the action genre. I feel like it's kind of just a tried and proven kind of method for just doing a good like set piece in a movie is on put on a train. I love the airport sequence in the start. I think even the moments when it's just talking heads in this are even more interesting than Final Reckoning. At least I it's the opening scene. I think when Ethan Hunt is like he infiltrates the Kittredge and our meeting, and he's just like in the background, like getting ready to throw the smoke bombs that start like the whole time. That kind of adds some kind of tension to the people talking in rooms moments. Which I don't think you would get any of that in Final Reckoning. It really is just talking heads. Um, yeah, I still love Dead Reckoning. I have it 4 stars, and that is my number 3, Dead Reckoning.
number 3.
Yeah,
Damn.
maybe my number 4 here would go above it, but
Okay, so for me, I have Mission Impossible Fallout at a 4 stars. Great film. Some great fight sequences. The bathroom one is really, really great. I love the whole Paris thing. I think that entire kind of set piece works really, really well. And kind of these chases, it flows really well. Fairly neatly directed, but again, I think it's a really great film that slowly kind of it does get a bit messy. I think actually when I'm talking about Paris, the as soon as kind of the action ends in Paris with him, he's like chased on a motorbike by police. As soon as that ends, we kind of get into this really messy situation in Paris. Like the second half of Paris is definitely not as good as the first half, and we kind of it does get a bit messy in the middle of the film with all this kind of John Lark stuff and who's who, and then the final act is solid, but again, I don't know, it's just It's good, but I don't think it's
Yeah.
as good as the first half of the film. So yeah, I think the first half is definitely stronger. Great film overall, but yeah, I do prefer the first half.
Yeah, Fallout is my number five. I guess a really good film. It's just not my completely kind of favorite type of movie for a Mission Impossible movie. It's about leaning into the more action movie. Like this always gets called like the greatest action movie of all time. I kind of prefer the
Yeah.
more like spy espionage kind of side of Mission Impossible that the kind of early ones do. Just a bit more to action. The main
Mhm.
villain is Agent Argyle in this. I don't this very slightly tainted my perception of the villain because I just can't look at him and not see um see him as Agent Argyle. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just a bit messy, like you said. Yeah, I think Mission Impossible is at its best when it's very well structured, and I think the ones
Mm,
above it do much better than that. And I kind of just loses me in parts of this. A really
mm,
good movie. It's a high 3.5, but it's probably not one that I would return outside of a Mission Impossible watch.
mhm. And now for the top three, I think these three for me are kind of just my favorite stands out of the franchise, even though I have um, two and three at the same rating as Fallout. But yeah, these three are like the best. Um, Number three for me, I have Mission Impossible 2. Wildly, wildly overhated, misunderstood banger. It is a John Woo film through and through, more than it is a Mission Impossible film, if we're going to be honest. Um, but I am
Yep,
all here for that. Tom Cruise has never looked so good than he does in this film, and I love the way that John Woo shoots him and the obsession that he has with him. The hair is incredible. Um, Tom Cruise on a bike again is
incredible.
introducing this, and it is absolutely incredible. Um, I love John Woo's style of directing and even the editing in this, which I know so many people hate. It's like the repeated like swinging around. If you get like to the end where he's like swinging a gun around to people, it like repeats it, and it's so good. And or the last act is the best last act in any Mission Impossible film. Kind of kicks off with the best mask rip in the film. Obviously, something this franchise is known for. Um, that's another thing I didn't pick up on. Final Reckoning. Does it? I can't even remember any
Oh
mask
yeah,
rips. I'm trying to think now. There's
I don't
there's
think
like
so.
the Austrian prison scene where they like
Oh
with
yeah.
pot and they like and no good mask rips in that film. This one is the best, probably the best two in like 20 seconds of each other with the villain where he realizes that he's shot his best friend, his like his lover who he's so in love with is so funny. And we get like it is a melodrama this film, and so many people hate melodrama, and especially to kind of go from one to two is quite crazy. And is so funny how overly dramatic everything in this film is. The drop kicks in the final fight, um, exquisite. The bike jousting where they jump in the air and collide, and the bikes explode. Absolute cinema. And yeah, one of the best Hans Zimmer scores as well, and probably the best score of the franchise. I think this
Yeah,
one.
that's not ridiculous.
The electric guitar when that kind of mask rip scene happens and Cruz runs out, the slow motion rips the mask off, and the electric guitar MI theme kicks in. Oh my goodness, what a scene that is! It is absolutely splendid and such a joy to watch. And narratively, coming into that last time, it's good. It's good. But I just have such a joy watching John Woo direct, and yeah, it is a fantastic film.
Yeah, it turns into a John Woo film. I still love the first half because the thing I
I do.
love the most about these or early entries is that they basically take Hitchcock movies, like the structure of them, and kind of turn them
Mm,
into modern adaptations of it. The first half of this is just Notorious, which is like Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman. Like he sends like Bergman into like these Nazis away, and she's in like really perilous situations, and that's basically what Cruise does in this movie. Is he sends he's like love interest into the cave of Douglas Scott and his henchman that is really jealous of their relationship. It is so funny. So yeah, that's why I think. I think when they're structured just so well like this, where it's a Hitchcock structure, I think that's when Mission Impossible is best. And then it just turns into this John Woo movie where it's ridiculous, like slow motion everywhere. That's another thing. Everybody hates slow motion because is it Zack Snyder? I don't know. People just have
If
a
slow motion done badly, it's really annoying.
yeah.
But when it's
People
done
just see
something
slow
like
motion
this,
now and they assume it's bad, like by
oh,
default. And I don't know
there are
who
some
done that, but
gorgeous images in this film. Like the shots of like Cruise riding on a bike. They're only really briefly cut to in the last act, but there's just shots of him like holding a gun just right off a bike, and it is so neatly composed, and you only see it so briefly, but it's such a nice shot. And yeah, I don't know, it's so good. The action, I'm having such a good time. It's so well choreographed, so well shot and directed. It is sublime stuff.
yeah,
And the cut to credits, probably the best cut to maybe the best cut to credits. The it
oh
is the
yeah.
glass throw that throws the glasses that explode. Um and yeah, credit start.
That's another thing that Final Reckoning's missing. Is the kind of intro sequence isn't as good, or doesn't
Oh
really
yeah.
hit when the main theme comes in. And oh,
Mm.
we forgot to mention as well. There's pretty much a non-existent score in this movie as well.
Oh yeah, in Final Reckoning. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
it's so bad. When it's there, it doesn't do anything, and most of the time, it's not even there.
yeah. Who's it that done the score? Who for Dead Reckoning? So I don't know if it was to do with that obviously was a part two at one point. I think they were supposed to shoot them back to back, but Cruise had to leave for Top Gun Maverick. So that's why it
Mm.
ended up being two separate productions.
Mm.
So it was apparent, maybe they fell out or something. There was conflicts of time, but it was Lauren Balfe, um, the composer of stuff like Florida Project, Dungeons and Dragons, the last two Mission Impossible movies, Wallace and Gromit. Some great scores in here. He had to leave the movie, and it was basically his two interns, his like proteges. They were like left to score this Final Reckoning. No moments of really the score really standing out at all. Really just
Mm.
underscore for like these dialogue talking head scenes.
Mm.
They use the main Mission Impossible theme a couple of times, maybe.
Mm.
Nothing that stands out, and that's very like just the bog standard. If you can't use the Mission Impossible theme properly, then you've got a big problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was another like really a really disappointing aspect of the movie.
Mm.
But yeah, Mission Impossible 2. Maybe I agree. Maybe the best score from Hans Zimmer. Not
Mm.
Hans Zimmer overall. Best score in the franchise.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I've it fourth. Maybe number three. They're very close.
It is number three. But for number two, I'm pretty sure we have the same top two.
Yeah.
I have Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, McHugh's first, and by a good way, his best film in the franchise. And the like you said, elsewhere, incredible cinematography. This film looks gorgeous. The we touched on it before, but just the set pieces, opera, the way it's shot, composed, choreographed, everything, the way it plays out is really, really fantastic. Um, there's it doesn't peak um, in a sense that we're left with kind of a trundling narrative to an end. That everything is
Hmm.
middle end, really tense, different to what we've kind of been left with. Some really neat bits of direction. Obviously, Tom Cruise back on a bike again is you just never go wrong. Really fantastically edited and shot sequence that bike chase sequence is. And notice that on rewatch is, and it's not even that he holds on his holds on to his shots a lot. It's just the editing is what we're cutting between is purposeful, and it's impactful, and it doesn't feel like we're cutting for the sake of cutting, like J.J. Abrams and his woeful editor. And some lovely new characters introduced, and yeah, it is a wonderful film, Rogue Nation.
Yeah, Rebecca
Yeah.
Ferguson is like the highlight of this movie.
Mm.
Again, I think she kind of comes in that opera scene, which is one of the best scenes in the whole franchise. Again, an homage to Hitchcock. It's an homage to The Man Who Knew Too Much, which is probably one of his more suspenseful scenes of his career. He done a lot of opera scenes throughout his career, so it could be. But I think it was referencing that movie in particular. Beautiful scene. The way Elsewhere shoots it is just incredible. Some of the
Mm.
best. Apart from the first one, I think it is probably the best set piece. Um, there's also the underwater like heist, which even though has a lot of visual effects, like compared to maybe some of the newer stunts, I really don't think it stands out as like like worsening the impact of it. Really, it's not as bad in Dead Reckoning. There's some moments where like the CGI is really bad and almost takes you out of it. I
Mm.
think because it was a rushed COVID production, but yeah, just there's so many great moments in Rogue Nation. Definitely the best from the more modern films, but I think we both agree on what is number one pretty easily.
Without a doubt, by a mile. Best mission Muslim film, obviously the original, which I've at 4.5. Rewatch kind of shifted that, and like we've touched on before, and in comparison to my Final Reckoning, De Palma just has that touch. His There are so many memorable images. They have such textures to them. The environments, everything, the characters. The tension is there. Like the first half of this film is this um, kind of really tense unraveling of a really bad situation that kind of gets recontextualized all of a sudden, and then it leads into this unbelievable set piece in this ridiculous last act, and it is classic De Palma, and I really want to know his thoughts on uh, kind of where this franchise has
Yeah,
been taken since that.
I wonder if
Um,
he watches them.
yeah. But yeah, it is splendid. It's just Dutch tilts done correctly and not in a superfluous way. And yeah, everyone is shot with intent in here, and it is a fantastic film.
Incredible, yeah. I mean, De Palma's like one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. This is
Mm,
really becoming like this is like right towards the end of I guess what people would describe as his prime. Really,
mm,
second, really big, big prime. I'd say in his 90s is like really underrated compared to the 80s, which is a lot of his probably more renowned like films. Like he's got like Dress to Kill, Body Double, um, and then
Blowout.
he's got yeah, Blowout, of course, his best film.
Con-
And then in the
yeah.
90s, he's got like more of the Mission Impossible, Snake Eyes, just some really underrated films. I think people
Mm,
maybe underrate this one. I don't know if the fact that it's the first in the franchise um, takes that into account because you're really just getting into know the franchise, and then everything feels like bigger and more scales and more action compared to this, where it's really just I think incredible filmmaking that is using
mm,
obviously De Palma as like the guy to use Hitchcock. This is pretty much just North by Northwest, where a guy gets staged or set up to be the guy that killed everybody at the start and goes on the run to prove that he's innocent. I love the structure of this movie. Um, everything feels like a set piece, like an action set piece. Like Tom Cruise is on a computer researching. This is like computer in the 90s, which is so dated, but you don't even like feel it because it's just such a exciting like set piece where he's got a split diopter with the bookcase in the background, and the Bible slowly becomes closer and closer to the computer screen. I love that scene. Um, the cast is amazing. John Voight, I think he's probably the best villain in this, just because of the way he's used the way that he's like part of Ethan's team at the start, and it's revealed that
mm,
he was the mole and killed everybody, got his own team killed. I think I love the twist in this so much. There's so much of De Palma's DNA. I think I really loved when blockbusters just like had these like auteur people come in and they really made their own film and not just some random blockbuster that was made for a studio. I miss when people were
mm,
doing that. This one's also scored by Elfman. I think
mm.
other than Zimmer, it's probably the best score in the franchise. David Kopp in his prime, I guess. Right after he wrote Jurassic Park as well, what a run of movies. Um,
Mm,
yeah, I love this movie so much. I think maybe even the only thing holding it back from a 5 star is that maybe the train sequence at the end isn't perfection. I guess.
it's quite funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really done well for the 90s, but the CGI is a bit dated slightly compared to
Mm,
maybe if De Palma had just done something like the rest of the film where it's not a big action set piece, maybe it would have worked better,
mhm.
in my opinion. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably why people view it as a lower tier version because it doesn't have that big action set piece.
yeah, I somewhat agree. But yeah, that is our Mission Impossible rankings. Tell us yours in the comments below and where you rank Final Reckoning. I think we're going to quickly go over our top 5 watches of April because we are quite behind on
Yeah.
that. We'll just quickly skip over them. I'll just run through mine first. Number 5, I have a documentary called Paris is Burning, which is a documentary on. This is a documentary that focuses on kind of the drag scene in Harlem, in New York, in the mid '80s, and yeah, it's really quite devastating and quite sad to be honest. Just so uh, it looks gorgeous, by the way, and so many the costumes and everything. Obviously, the documentary and it is as sad as it is kind of imaginative and quite necessary. But yeah, really great film. At number 4, I have Jiazan Keys, filmmaker who I have gotten into this year. I absolutely love one of his films, Unknown Pleasures. Really fantastic kind of these two people so kind of adrift in the place that they're living, got probably the saddest and most pathetic bank robbery in history. Guy just walks into a bank and just no one does anything. It's so funny. Yeah, really great film, would recommend. Then number 3, I have Johnny Toe's Election. Johnny Toe, another filmmaker I've discovered this year that I absolutely adore, one of my favorite action directors ever. He has a very big disdain for China. He's a Hong Kong filmmaker. As we know, Hong Kong make the best action films, and this kind of political scene and sense of friendship um, and treason is so wonderful and such a joy to watch. His compositions are extraordinary, and this is a fantastic film. And at number 2, I have Hiroshima Mon Amour, which is a really devastating film and such a clever way handling such a sensitive subject, and is really quite sad and not um, outdone by the fact that it is a really stunning film. This kind of black and white photography works really well. I think sometimes you can get really stunningly composed and calculated shot films that feel so out of tune with their subject matter. And I think this one has a great balance of the two.
Yep.
Election
I
2.
watched that like right after Oppenheimer, and I think it has such a great
Mhm.
perspective of what the Japanese
Mm,
perspective of it that like was kind of left out
yeah.
of Oppenheimer. It's a good
Mm.
companion piece to watch with Oppenheimer, I think.
Yeah, it is. At number 1, though, I have Election 2, or Tried Election from Johnny Toe, which takes everything the first one, kind of elevates it even more. He has in these films, like the cinematography is quite muted, all of the colors, and it is so stunning. The landscapes are absolutely gorgeous, and I need to watch more of his films because they are just extraordinary. I have such a great time with them, and you need to start watching his films as well, Ryan. But yeah, Election 2 was my favorite first time watch of April.
Nice. Is it an actual like sequel to Election?
Yes, it is. Um, narrative wise, kind of. Let me just go back to. Characters wise, yes, and is a lot, and yeah, characters wise, yes, and characters and actors taken from the first, but kind of a different story, in a way, just evolving this um kind of triads. Obviously, the kind of gang members in Hong Kong. That's what they were called. And yeah, it's all about all those gangs and stuff. It is so good.
Nice. My number five is a film we watched together. We watched Pink Flamingos from John Waters. Outrageous cinema. It's we watched. What was the other John Waters we watched? Um,
No more trouble.
yeah, Female Trouble. Where it's just outrageous stuff that you just. I mean, I don't think you can find this anywhere else.
Mm.
Just really low budget independent films from the 70s that they just did whatever they wanted, and it was absolutely mental stuff that they had the main character Divine, the very infamous movie, but one that's it's a really fun watch with people, if you get a chance to watch
Mm.
it. It was very funny watching Female Trouble with a crowd.
It was.
My number four is Basic Instinct, from when we were watching. Well, we done a Paul Verhoeven podcast last month on Showgirls, and I also watched a bunch of his other films. So I finally watched Basic Instinct, which was a big blind sight for me. Really, the film that put Sharon Stone on the map. She's very well known for this performance. Is very erotic, as many of his films are. Yeah, both his American films or all of his American films are very, very, very erotic. This is again on topic. Again, this is another guy kind of taking the Hitchcock formula structure and doing his own kind of thing. He's really doing a lot with Vertigo here. Kind of the brunette and blonde, kind of doing a De Palma, doing a Hitchcock in this movie. It's really weird. The sort of dress to kill homage in here. Very cool. Kind of just the stuff that I love. It's kind of a Giallo and some influences from Giallo in here as well. Um, Really fun movie. Which are going into my number three is another Verhoeven movie. It's called The Fourth Man, which was his last film that he done in the Netherlands, which is also it's kind of basically his first go at Basic Instinct, but it's very surreal. Probably the most surreal that I mean I've not seen his new stuff, but it's the most surreal that I've seen Verhoeven go. Bits of Argento, bits of Hitchcock in here. Very colourful movie, very surreal, just very fun and weird, and very European art house cinema esque. It's also very erotic. Definitely check that out. It's different from his American stuff, but also very similar. Some very similar themes in there. I really recommend that. I mean, I don't think you've checked out any of his Netherlands stuff, have you?
No.
No. Yeah. That might. I think it's like top three Verhoeven. I think I have ranked. I really love that. Um, number number two, I have Hell's a Poppin' from 1941. This is like one of the films that I would, if someone said that like old films are boring, I'd go say, watch this because it's like the most like it's almost like brain knot levels of just like how fast it's moving. It's like there's so much happening in like the first like 10 minutes of this. Never a boring moment. Just so much crazy stuff going on screen. Like they're breaking the fourth wall. I think there's some fifth and sixth wall breaks. I even had to like look up
Oh.
even
Well,
what it
what's
was
the
even
film
called for what
called?
they were doing. Hell's a popping. Um, just crazy. There's a reference to Citizen Kane. And this movie came out 7 months after Citizen Kane. It's just like crazy stuff for the time. The way they were just being really meta and kind of talking to the audience and like talking to the like fake audience watching the movie inside the movie. There's so many like wall breaks, and it's so ridiculous. Yeah, just a really fun movie that I'd recommend. Um, and my number one is a movie called Pierce, which is from Mako Curtis, the director of Casablanca. I think it's even better than Casablanca. I think it's like a noir style. It's a James M. Cain adaptation, which is also Billy Wilder done for Double Indemnity. It's an adaptation of the same writer from that, which I think they're both just really well written films. Probably one of the most beautifully lit noir films I've seen as well, and Joan Crawford, the lead performance is just incredible. I think it's one of the best from the 40s that I've seen so far. Really recommend that. It's probably like top 20 or something from that decade. But yeah, that's my top five from the month of
Nice.
April. Not really a great month for first watches. Um, next month will be better, I think. Yeah, that's our first watches for the month of April. And yeah, let us know what you've been watching this month, what your top watch is, and let us know what you thought of Mission Impossible. Did you think it was disappointing, or did you love it as much as the rest of the franchise? I mean, I hope you liked it, but it was really disappointing for us. But yeah, we'll be back next week for something else. See you.